Hey, welcome to another episode of Making Billions. I'm your host, Ryan Miller. Today I have one of my very dear friends, Ben Humble. Ben Humble is the founder of Cashflow Tribe, as well as the author of a couple of books, one From Communism to Capitalism, and the other one, Real Estate Secrets Exposed. Ben Humble has done over $100 million in real estate transactions, and I cannot wait until he comes on and tells us everything about leadership, investing in deals, but more importantly, we're going to hear about really what made Ben the man he is today. So Ben Humble, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Ryan, it's good to be here, buddy.
Good. So here we are. You and I have got to know each other a little bit here, and I can say I am so impressed with your background, your energy, and the love and the zest you bring into life. And this is going to be a fun show, man. I'm looking forward to bringing some of that out for our guests around the world. So that being said, that's quite the intro. I'm sure many of our audiences are in that stage. They don't know, where they're at or where it begins or whatever excuses they have. My hope is after they hear your story, they have no more excuses. And that's what we're talking about. That anyone listening to this show is looking at making billions, and you are certainly one of those that exemplify that. So that being said, for our guests around the world, maybe you can bring us up to speed. I mean, we can find out who you are today, but I think I'm curious of where did it all start? What are those driving forces that pushed you to become the man and build the empire you have today?
So I was born in a communist country of Romania during a period that was extremely difficult for my parents. If you know anything about communism, you're told what to do, where to go, what to believe, and mostly what you can't do.
Yeah.
And my dad is like me. Right?
Yeah.
We want to control our futures, our destinies. We believe in a higher power. We believe that we were created to do amazing things. And Dad goes, I have 5 kids. I need to leave this place of oppression.
Yeah.
He had to grab the children that he could. And he had to trek across the border and hide every day and run at night and coordinate with a couple people. And he had to leave a couple of kids behind in this super dangerous mission that we went on. Try to make it to a refugee camp, which we inevitably did get there within a couple of days in Austria.
Wow.
We arrive in this refugee camp, and the people in the camp look at my dad, and they're in disbelief because nobody ran with kids at that time.
Yeah.
It was usually the men would run, and if they were successful, they would try to petition or bring their wives and kids over later. But my dad ran in full faith. Mom had another child in the refugee camp a few months later. They killed the president of Romania on live television on Christmas Day. That's how bad it was in Romania. On broad television, they executed this guy and his wife.
Wow.
Eventually, we were reunited with my 2 siblings that were left behind. And Mom had another child in the refugee camp. Fast forward, we applied to come to North America. Canada accepted our petition, our application. So we came to Canada. Mom and Dad had 3 more children, and I'm the oldest now of 9 kids to 2 immigrant parents.
That's incredible.
When you grow up that way, it just creates something inside of you, a level of conviction about life, where my dad escaped oppression, communism, adversity, and he turned everything he had that was bad into something that was positive. He took control of his life, and this is where this whole thing for me starts, is this idea of personal freedom, the freedom of expression, which to me is the greatest of all freedoms, the freedom of financial oppression, to exceed that and get out of that bondage, freedom of scarcity, freedom of negativity, freedom of all these different things that you feel that are imposed upon you in life. And that's how I've lived my life.
Wow.
Is this person who is an immense and considerable pursuit of freedom.
That is incredible. And I would agree that's unlocking the human spirit. There's just something about it. You can't hold it down. You can't for very long. And so, I mean, wow, what an incredible story. I mean, I can just picture as best as I can your parents fleeing. I mean, I'm a parent. That would be such a nightmare to be able to flee from something as silly as a political ideology, and how much that kind of messed with people's lives, more importantly, their freedoms to pursue their own happiness. So here you are, you found asylum in Canada. Where did it go from there?
So we're in Canada. I grew up wanting to be a musician.
Yeah.
Always remembering kind of the 3 things that I believe we have 3 choices in life as I'm growing up. When you sense oppression, adversity, whatever, you have 3 choices. You fight, if it's your fight. You hide, if that's who you are in that moment, or you run.
Yeah.
So I went to music school. I was trying to become a musician, and I get there, and I'm doing this thing. And in music school, the teacher comes to me about year 2, and she says, "You are the most talented, but the most lazy kid that I have." She's like, you have so much potential if you just would work. And I had to make a decision. I would hide, I would fight, or I would run. And I said, I never want to be told how to play my music. I never want to be told how I can express myself. For me, again, the freedom of expression is the single most important thing that I have, the single greatest liberty in my life. And I said, I don't want to play music on your terms or anybody else's terms. I'm going to go create enough abundance in my life, wealth, money, so that I can play music on my own terms. In the process, I'm going to help my family and I'm going to help the people around me. So that's what I did. I dropped out of school, no degree. I'm sure, my immigrant parents were really excited that their oldest kid was like, I'm dropping out of school. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to start a cleaning company. I'm going to clean crap.
Yeah. And that's what you did.
And that's what I did. I bought a carpet cleaning machine for $2,000. And I started cleaning carpets. My very first customer was my own mom. She paid me $100 to clean my own room.
That's a great deal.
What do you do when you're a kid and you drop out of university, you need money, you go to mom and you say, but I'll work for it this time because mom, I needed the discipline. And I learned something about myself. I learned that myself and people just like me should have a service-based business at some point in their life, because when you're a young person with a service-based business, you are forced into the world of hard knocks, and you have to learn business. You have to learn basic accounting and invoicing and how to talk to customers. You have to learn how to be on time. You have to learn some discipline. And I learned how to just clean crap over and over and over and over again until I conditioned myself to become a person of discipline, and I conditioned myself into a work ethic. It was conditioning. It was a choice.
Wow.
And in the middle of that, I started realizing, hey, man, life has options for you. You don't have to pick the status quo. So I became a rebel, man. I became a rebel of anything that looked like oppression. And that's where my journey keeps rolling to.
I love that. And, I love that. I mean, I've thrown around the ideas. Go ahead and copy it for any of you who are listening. But always something like punk rock capital or something like that, where it's just you celebrate the rebels, right? And with music, I mean, there's nothing more rebellious than punk rock that embraces that rebel spirit. But really, and that's the thing that I've really come to love about you and the organization that you've built, is you celebrate the rebels. You say, yeah, look, if the status quo ain't working, rebel, find a way, just like you and your family did when you fled Romania at such a young age in that nightmare scenario, as I can imagine what your parents must have felt in order to just leave everything they owned behind. And they were rebels and you were rebels. And you just said, look, I have a better purpose, and how it is not going to get me there. And you made the changes. You pushed back against what was pushing back on you. And through that adversity, that allowed you to build the persona and the man that you are today. Would you agree?
I would absolutely agree. And I've learned one important thing I'll share with you and the audience is that life will keep giving you pain until you turn that pain into a lesson.
Wow.
So sometimes when we're financially broke or emotionally we're struggling or relationships suck or overweight, you're going to keep feeling that pain over and over again. And one of the lessons that I learned is that nothing is easy. Music doesn't come easy. Finance doesn't come easy. Business doesn't come easy. Making $100 million, $200 million, $1 billion is never going to be easy. Remove the easy button from your life. And then what you have is the success button. The progressive daily growth that you can have from just going, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Not about perfection, it's about progress. I just put in so many reps in this thing called business, called music, called life, that I get to go, I own my outcomes because I've practiced owning my outcomes.
Man, that is so cool. And, one of the things that I talk about, especially with the people I'm fortunate enough to support, is I'll always say, hey, man, you think the guys who make it to the Super Bowl did it because they threw a football one time, or they benched one time or one chin up? Heck no. These guys are putting in the reps. You cannot keep them off the field. You cannot keep them out of the gym. They are dedicated to their craft. And to your point, you're saying, man, I'm putting in the reps. The reason why I'm going to the Super Bowl in my life and I'm having championship events in my life, it's because I'm putting in the reps. I'm dedicated. I got a mission. I'm putting in the reps and over and over. So it's like anybody that goes up against Ben Humble or anybody who's put in way more reps and way more work, it's like you're going to lose or you're going to join them. Either way, you're around a powerhouse. Anybody that can remove the easy button and replace it with the success button knows you put in the reps, things are going to start to shake loose.
Let me say this one thing about that, because I think it's pivotal. I've learned in my life, because, dude, I wear this humble hat for a reason. There's a lot I don't know.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I believe it's this. This is a big lesson I've learned. There's a lot of people willing to put in reps, and that's called working hard.
Yes.
I think it's optimizing the reps as you put them in. That to me is called working smart. I worked hard for a long time in real estate and the carpet cleaning and different things. And I made money, but I didn't really have traction. And I think it's progressively optimizing your work. Progressively optimizing your thinking. Like, dude, you're a mentor. It's so phenomenal to be able to have a dialogue with another mentor, because you understand that you progressively, as a student of mentorship, we have to keep progressing the way we do the business, the way we do our life. It's not enough to just work hard. A lot of people work hard. People in my communist country of Romania, they work hard. They might be working more hours than you, but you have an economic machine called you, where you in North America have so much opportunity to optimize, to work better, to work smarter, to create better financial models for yourself and your family. You can create impact. You have a voice. You have freedom. So I just think reps are great. It's a fantastic start. But I don't want to create this narrative where hard work gets you there. Hard work gets you started. Smart work is going to get you to progress faster and faster.
That's right. It's like the constant battle between being efficient and effective, right? Doing things right or doing the right things. Absolutely. And once you overlay that and doing the right things coupled with hard work, I think is exactly where you said it perfectly, is saying that's where traction begins. In that space, if you can achieve that, hard work and doing the right things in the right way, man, you're gonna see your life take off. And that being said, I love this dialogue, man. You're jacked up. I love your energy, man. So here you are, you're cleaning carpets, told your immigrant parents you're dropping out. And I mean, how did you go from cleaning carpets to this massive $100 million real estate? I mean, what was that leap? Because this is important, that a lot of people, maybe they're cleaning, maybe they're doing something. I mean, they're not exactly where they're at. They don't know how to make that leap. How did that happen for you? What was that first, the beginning of your real estate empire from cleaning carpets?
You ever see that image online where it's got the big iceberg and then there's only like 10% above water that shows it, but really 90% of it is still submerged underwater?
Totally.
I think people looking for the silver bullet. What's the one thing, the one thing? I think they create a little bit of a silver bullet syndrome. It was a lot of little lessons that I learned. The way that it cultivated was, I'm cleaning carpets. I'm doing this consistently. I finally built the work ethic, cleaning just cleaning, man, cleaning. I learned discipline by having to go at midnight to go and clean, leave a warm bed to go and clean for 2-3 hours, learn that discipline, learn that kind of attitude of doing whatever it takes. So as I'm doing this, I'm trying to optimize my work. And I'm like, I need to join a local business group or something, because I don't know much about business. So I did.
Yeah.
And in this business group was a mortgage broker, was an insurance guy, was a cleaning person, was a person who owned a sign company, was another person who was a chiropractor. And there was 5 or 6 other business owners. And I'm in this room and we're doing a round table. And they're like, what are you trying to do in your business? And I'm like, I'm trying to get out. I'm tired of cleaning. I'm trying to get out of this business and I want to get into something better. Somebody said, read this Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. There's this guy, Kiyosaki, and I'm reading his material, and somewhere it says, if you want to make $1 million, buy $1 million worth of real estate. I was like, oh, that sounds great. And then have these people called tenants pay it off. I'm like, great. So I need real estate and customers called tenants. I can make $1 million. I'm like, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I'm progressively. So I start asking, who can help me? Who can help me? Literally. Lowering my ego and asking for help. And one guy says,
love that.
Hey, dude, I'm a mortgage broker. I can help you.
Yeah.
I said, great. I need a property and I need the money. You don't have either. He said, well, I have a piece of junk that used to be a convenience store that I'm converting into a duplex. If you want it, you can have it. And I said, great, I'll take it.
I'm in.
He didn't even do you want to come see it? I was like, no, I'll just take it. Dude, I cleaned crap for a living.
Yeah.
Do you not think I want to be in real estate? I don't care how bad it's broken. See, I was
Yeah.
willing to swallow the pride and swallow whatever it was,
Yeah.
and not trying to be idealistic about success, but just be progressive in success.
That's
That's
right.
to me how I find growth in my life, is be progressive.
That's
So
right.
he gave me the property. He helped me get the money together. I got in with 100% financing. I didn't get a good deal by any means.
No.
I had to assume a tenant in the main floor who had a mental disability.
Yeah.
So I had to deal with that as in relation to being a landlord. And like the dude had a seizure one time. I had to go and help him in his apartment that I wasn't equipped to deal with. I wasn't prepared for that.
Sure.
But I moved in. I was paying $156 a month plus utilities, and it got me out of mom's basement.
Wow.
I was like, yes, progress.
Yes.
That's it. Progress. Because, dude, it doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how much of a silver spoon you started with life. You, against my progressive, growth-oriented mindset where I keep finding lessons upon lessons upon lessons upon lessons, you're not going to stop me from encroaching on what you think is success. If it's me against you, I promise it's me.
Yeah.
Why? Because I'm going to optimize. I'm going to stay humble and just keep pushing. I'll be embarrassed. I'll fail. I'll clean shit. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What matters is that I have a mission, and I keep running towards that mission.
Yeah, and I could tell, and that's something we continue to overlay in a lot of the people I'm fortunate enough to help, and including my own children. To echo your point, is we have a saying in our home is progression beats perfection. And that's exactly what you're saying. You're saying, look, man, you don't have to be perfect. Another one is done is better than perfect. I mean, just lose the idea of perfect. It's a weird concept. In fact, that's the lowest standard you could shoot for. All you got to concern yourself with is, how do I progress in the areas that are meaningful to you? Would you agree?
I agree. In fact, that's one of the first things I kill with mentorship students. I know you're a coach. It's amazing to have dialogue with another coach.
Yeah, man.
But kill that silver bullet, man. Hey, man, I'm in this coaching. What do I do? Like, kill the silver bullet. Just be prepared to have daily, consistent progress. Like, you got here. This is the starting point. Now get ready for the work.
Yeah.
And I think it's how we struggle. You can struggle with the glass half empty attitude and everything is more difficult than it needs to be and chaotic and drama filled. Or you can create foundational rules and principles. Ray Dalio has a book called Principles. I believe in creating principles for your life by which you live by. And one of mine is, data, not drama. I create these rules. I have 5 or 10 of these rules, man, that I just live by. And it helps me manage my emotions as I'm progressively doing harder and harder things when it comes to finance, business, and life. I
love that. So you bought this, you're progressing, you got your first deal, it's hard to, from what you said, I wouldn't call it a deal. You didn't get a deal. You overpaid for that thing. You're certainly doing things that you didn't think you were going to do as a landlord. I mean, how did you scale?
Yeah. So I got excited doing the first one. I was a baller. Let me finish the story. I called my brother because, growing up in a big family, mom buys this Costco cereal and like 2 jugs of milk, and that's like dinner for a night or something, right? Yeah. So I called my little brother, and the very first night I went to the store, I bought every cereal I could find. I'm like, bro, we got Lucky Charms, Count Chocula. We got all the stuff we weren't supposed to eat, and 3 jugs of milk come over. We're about to feast. As far as I made it, I had made it. Yeah. And I didn't compare myself to other people because it didn't matter. No. I compared myself to me. So I bought another one 3 to 4 months later. I bought another one a few months after that. Yeah. I had 3 properties. I was living rent-free by the time I got married at 23 years old. Yeah. And I was extremely fortunate. I've learned that opportunity equals skills plus the chance. Yeah. I was extremely fortunate to have started buying real estate in 2006 because I got to watch the 2008, 2009 collapse. Mm. Now, in the collapse, my properties lost 10, 20,000 of value. Yeah. But I watched people lose fortunes. Yeah. And it helped me understand the law and the game of market cycles. And it helped me see a very clear picture. The very next property I bought was going for about 80 grand prior to the collapse, and it was on sale for $39,000. Okay. And I walked back to the bank. What you don't know is that the bank, I went there the first time to get a loan and try to buy real estate and stuff like that when I got my very first deal, and they declined me. Yeah. This was the bank the large commercial bank in Canada
Yeah.
that I've been with my entire life. And they said, no, you don't have the credit score. You don't have the T4s and notice of assessments we need. You don't have the business experience. And I was completely shocked. I was like, I've been with you.
Yeah.
You can't give me a loan for one property. So I learned this through conversation that there's a whole world of private equity, of OSPs, of stuff in Canada.
Yeah.
So the fourth deal, dude, I negotiated hard.
Yeah.
I got it for 25 grand. And I called my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
I said, listen, this is cheaper than a Honda. I need this money.
Yeah.
Trust me, it's going to go back up. I don't know when, but I will clean it. I will polish it. I will do whatever I have to do.
Yeah.
I had developed a work ethic by then. So I was there Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day.
Yeah.
Getting it rented for January the 1st. I even had the tenants, 2 young guys that were moving in with me at the property, painting the darn thing to knock $300 off of their rent.
Man.
And I was able to do that. And that was a catalyst to doing hundreds of acquisitions, hundreds of deals. Was that third to fourth deal, just that progressive move, that progressive grind.
Savage, man. I love it. Like just grinding it out. And I love this unfiltered view of what was required in the early days, right? And you know, our friend Tony Robbins here, he says you know, it's more about lack of resourcefulness than lack of resources. And you know, what I'm hearing is how resourceful you were. You're like, nope, whatever it takes, right? And that's I find that's a very common attitude for a lot of people, especially anyone listening to the show that's looking to make billions. Let's just set that standard now of just say whatever it takes. I mean, within reason. Let's not do anything illegal, but we're just saying, like, if you need to be there New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, whatever, like, don't go around claiming you're a victim when you can't put in the work, or you say, well, whatever it takes, as long as it's not after 5 p.m. or before 10 a.m., right? You're like, no, that's not what it means. It says if you've got a goal, you've got a vision, you got to be committed to whatever that takes. So
I think you have, let me add this piece.
Please do.
You have seasons in your life.
Yeah.
And for the first few years, I was just in a work hard season.
Yeah.
Then I was in a work smart, optimized season. Then I got mentorship, which radically changed the trajectory of my income and my business season. Then I had stop trying to be rich and create real wealth season. Now I'm living in an abundant season where impact is of the greatest importance to me, living in my mission, in my purpose-driven life. And then income, because frankly, I've made enough money to last me the rest of my life. And I can live a very comfortable life traveling and hanging out with friends, family, wife, and people that I care about, and giving money back to amazing causes and charities, and giving back to humanitarian efforts that I truly support. Like right now, helping our friend raise $1 million for Ukraine to bring bandages and equipment and supplies to people that need it. Like this to me creates way more, but you'll have a season. And I think it's okay to have a season where you grind.
Yeah.
It's okay to have a season where you build discipline in your life. Because when you don't have discipline, it's hard to understand it. When you finally have discipline, you stop thinking about it, Ryan.
Yeah.
The moment that you start like, dude, I work out every single day, it no longer becomes work. It's just who you are. You're a person who works out. Wow,
that is awesome. And you know, and with your vision and your mission and creating real wealth, not just income, but wealth, my understanding is you stood up Cash Flow Tribe, and you're sharing that mission and bringing other people along with you to join in that light. Maybe just kind of walk through a little bit of that group and maybe the mastermind as well. What was that all about? How did that support your overall mission? Fill us in.
Yeah, so I ended up raising over $40 million to do a whole bunch of deals, hundreds and hundreds of acquisition deals all across Canada, even a few in the United States.
Right.
And in that mission, I made about $1 million net. You know, I had, kind of cash at 30 years old, and I go, okay, it's kind of an empty feeling. I was chasing it.
Yeah.
And who I became in the process, I realized was actually a far greater value to me personally than the money.
Yeah.
We're going to have a millionaire party. We're going to buy Lambos and do all this stuff. And my wife, we looked at our net worth because we had this habit of looking at our net worth.
Yeah.
And we went, let's go through this amazing party. And this was Christmas Eve. And we looked at it. We overshot by like $100 grand.
Yeah.
So we overshot on the $1 million thing. And then we're like, what do we do? Like, nothing. Let's just go to bed. We just became such workaholics and ingrained in this mission.
Yeah.
I realized in that moment that the thing that I enjoyed the most was working with other people.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself for a moment, I I had a person who was kind of a mentor to me, and they said, dude, you're going to find more value in life out of fulfillment. And fulfillment comes with people versus you just making more empty dollars for yourself.
Great advice.
That's selfish lifestyle. That's why you don't feel the right thing. So I said, you know what? I'm going to make the next 5 million, 10 million, 30, 50 million with people. I'm going to start doing deals with them. I'm going to help them succeed. My goal just became to help people become millionaires in this thing of real estate. So I started the Humble 100 to help 100 people quit their jobs and become millionaires through real estate. And I've been on this mission now. And this led me to this community idea of building this thing called Cash Flow Tribe. In Cash Flow Tribe, we have thousands of members across Canada. It's an in-the-face, rebellious punch to all the other education companies that sell education. I don't think education is your problem. I think activation is your problem. It's one thing to get education. It's another thing to take that, convert that into a real mission, activate your body into movement, and start actually working towards your financial goals. So we're a business building community in the field of real estate. And I'm just so honored in that we have a mastermind, and there's some amazing humans that are building real legacy companies, people that are quitting their job in 3 to 6 months and building wealth for their family. They're able to actually spend time with their kids, invest and pour into their next generation. So my life became amazing in the sense of people. Dude, I have so many friends in real estate, so many people in my world that I've met through real estate, through masterminds. I became a student of masterminds and mentorship. I've spent over $400,000 to date on masterminds and mentorships, over 400 grand in personal development in that area of my life. And I'm just a conduit, which we all are. I receive value, information, help, resources, support, and I give it to the next group, which is my community. So I believe that that's the beauty of life, is being able to be a teacher and a student at the same time. And that allows you to be a conduit to other people, be a conduit for charity, be a conduit for knowledge, be a conduit for hope and encouragement. So that's been my life for the last couple of years, is traveling. I'm living on the road, or living at, I'm on a resort property here where we live for the moment. And I'm just able to pour into people's lives every day and help create impact in dollars.
Wow. And that is absolutely astounding. And I know there's so many levels of the things that you have done, not just in business. Yes, clearly in business, but for other people as well. And, maybe we'll leave a few secrets in your pocket that people will have to reach out and really get to know you. And we'll include in the description below some ways people can reach out and learn a little bit more and get to know you a little bit better. As we move forward, looking back, I'm sure many of our listeners would like to know, looking back on your success, what advice would you give people who are looking for a way to make billions in the real estate sector? What are some of those things, maybe in real estate or otherwise, or in leadership or otherwise, would you say?
I'll give you an ingredient to me that's kind of the core 4 that I've learned. And I have this principle that life will keep serving you pain over and over again until you learn the lessons associated with that pain. And if you start looking at life that way, instead of getting upset and disgruntled about the struggle that you're having and turn it into adversity, turn it into a negative victim mindset, go, what are the lessons? When you look at lessons, then you get to immediately reshift perspective and start looking at it in an abundant mindset. And that's what I started doing. So I learned this little formula that became extremely valuable to my growth. And it goes like this. There's 4 components to a growth, abundance kind of mindset. The first one is ambition. Every single person requires a level of ambition. Frankly, the young men like me, ambition isn't the problem. Ambition to you isn't the problem. Most of us can rattle off our ambition. Many times that becomes pride and ego. So it's one part ambition. That one comes easy. The next one is hard. The next one I have to wear as a tattoo on my forehead every single day, so I remember. And the second one is humility. What is this idea of humility? A lot of people think it's a weakness. Humility isn't a weakness. Humility is all about this idea of insight. So many of us are I've heard one of the pastors say this. He said that there's 2 kinds of people. There's the people that are arrogant, so arrogant and ignorant. And then there's the people that are humble and ignorant. Both camps are ignorant. Both of us require more awareness and knowledge. So this thing is about ask good questions. Be humble enough to not try to posture in every room you go to. Be humble enough to even join. I'm in a mastermind group now where I pay $100,000 a year. That's one of a few different groups I belong to. When you walk into that room, be okay being the little fish. Be okay. Like, you don't always have to be I call it the Johnny high school thing.
Yeah.
Johnny for no specific reason. But
Yeah.
back in the day, you're like this cool high school kid, and you're just living in the high school days,
Yeah.
in high school, and high school, and high school. And when you're an adult, you're still living in high school day. You wear your,
Sure.
your jerseys and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Be okay being the little fish. I don't mind being the smallest player in the room. If I ask good questions, I'm the person who learns the most. So
Right.
one part ambition, one part humility. The next one is about truth, and that's the word proximity. Until you get around people and visually see it, humans have a hard time with this concept of faith. Blind faith is almost impossible. So like I said, is it possible as an immigrant kid to live on the road and live in hotels and live in this stuff? I met a mentor who's like, dude, I wear shorts every day. I work millions and millions and millions.
Yeah.
I'm going to give away $100 million in my life to charity. And I wear shorts and a fedora, and I'm driving a Rolls Royce, and I'm doing deals from the golf club every day. I'm like, is that legitimate?
Yeah.
Or is that a scam?
Yeah.
See, most people, until they see it, they don't believe it. They go, that can't be the life. That guy must be cheating somebody.
Yep.
And I've seen firsthand that it works.
Yeah.
So proximity. And then the last one is this: being accountable to a dedicated plan. Most people will never be accountable to a dedicated plan because that's the hard one to do.
Right.
It's the one that requires the grinding and the gut work, the stuff people don't want to do, the emotional resilience. The most important aspect I look in the leader or somebody that I hire for my team is their emotional resilience, their emotional stability. People don't want to have accountable encounters. Hey, man, you're 30 pounds overweight. It's time to do something. Hey, listen, your company could be a $500 million company, but you're stuck here at $100 million, or your company could be this and it's stuck here. It's because you're not willing to encounter and be extremely accountable to the outcome. That you have to have a committed, dedicated plan.
Wow. That is incredible.
And I think that one of the only things, Ryan, where that happens, buddy, is when you have a mentor who can speak from a position of counsel, a position of expert thinking, a person who can discern information into wisdom.
Yes.
That's what you need. Somebody who can speak that over your life because they've done it.
Wow.
And if they haven't done it, it's so hard to go, what's your goal? Well, goals are empty. They're fleeting and they're emotional.
Yeah.
What's your target? Oh, man, targets have to be accurate. You have to be able to put together a plan, and you have to be able to stay on course if you're going to execute that with precision.
I love that. So converting goals into targets. And, one thing, when you talked about proximity, it's another thing, again, that I've learned from you is it's one thing to be in the room, but it's another to be known that you're there. So proximity, as we know, again, big fan of Tony Robbins, he says proximity is power. And so being in the room with the right people, again, building those reputation relationships to not only be in the room, but to be known when you are, is extremely powerful as you pursue in leadership and growth in your career and making billions as well. So, I know I get asked this and you get asked this a lot, but, what are some of those factors that, that you need or that you found that can help you to progress in your life, in your wealth? We talked a lot about the pursuit of freedom when we started. What are some of those couple of areas that you would say have helped you as far as moving things forward?
Yeah, I'll give you one of my big ones, and it's this keyword right here. It's just McDonald's does it for free. It's called smiling.
Yes.
I know it's weird for a lot of people. You have to crest up your lips a little bit.
Try it. Yeah.
A lot of people are just so afraid to smile. Dude, I take my life and I go, I'm a little bit bipolar in my thinking. There's a divergence here that goes, life is really hard and complicated and you have to work really hard.
Sure.
But the way that you endure the difficulty is the way that leads to the outcome, to the best outcome. So I smile through it. I smile through the issues. I smile through the problems. I put on, because leadership really is about becoming a role model. My dad taught me this. So he said, when you are trying to be something, like you want to be a leader, like what role are you playing in life? Many people go, I'm being a business owner. That's the role. I'm being a fiduciary, a money lender, money manager in your role. That's the role. I'm being this. That's the role. I'm being a father. Which role are you playing? And the role that I choose to play every day is the role of a leader.
Yes.
A leader has to set the tone. A leader has to live with conviction. So I think smiling through it is so important. It leads me to this idea of conviction.
Yeah.
We talked about before here, the idea that money follows conviction in the markets, in the business world. the person with the most amount of conviction, the most amount of internal belief in themselves and what they're doing. Like I'm an 11 out of 10 when it comes to conviction. It's not bravado. It's not ego. It's not false positives.
Wow.
It's not just arrogance.
Yeah.
It's conviction. Conviction is just truth. It doesn't need to put on a show. It doesn't need to highlight anything. I smile in every room I go to. I shake a firm hand with every single person I meet because I'm living in conviction about my future and I know what God's got in store for me in this world. Yeah. If you do that, you will find that doors open quicker.
Yeah.
These are just fundamental rules that I believe in. So many times we want to posture and we want to show up and we want to be this thing. And that's why I told you, it's one thing to go into a room. It's another thing to be remembered.
Yeah.
How do you become remembered? It's how you make people feel when you're in that room.
Yeah. Bullseye.
A lot of business people are so focused on the tactical. How do I raise the money? How do I do my fund? Dude, how do I do $1 billion fund and create billions of dollars? And the real way is to understand that it's more than just money. It's also biology.
Yeah.
People need to feel. People have to have conviction and emotions about you and what you're doing. So if somebody goes, I like that Ryan Miller guy. He's a role model.
Yeah.
That guy has a good energy and a good attitude about him. I want to work with him because here's the truth that nobody ever says. People only really find out your character when things are hard.
That's right.
If you go through some shit right now and you have a tough season and your $1 billion fund goes to $500 million, who do you show up as in that moment?
That's right.
If you show up as this apathetic, scared individual with no conviction about growth and no abilities and awareness to fix the present problem, and you show up with complaining and you show up with this, and this, every single time that happens, people lose faith and confidence in what you represent. Yeah. Dude, I represent a level of conviction and a mission that I have to guard and defend. Hey, man, where are you going? I'm going to the top.
Yes.
With people, with building wealth, and not just financially, but emotional wealth, relational wealth. I'm going to the top of that food chain. I want to win at every level in my life. I live with such conviction. If things go bad, come see me. I'll be smiling.
Yeah, that's incredible.
People remember that, brother.
Yeah.
And if you want to stand out in a rule, I think obscurity is the enemy.
Yeah.
Dude, when I hung out with you when we were in that room and there's 1,300 men in that room and women, and everybody's wearing the same suit, the same color, right? The same color suit, the same aesthetic, the same visual, the same business card, the same conversation, the same tie, the same shirt.
Yeah.
I thought we were in a Men in Black episode. I was like, what is going on here? Somebody's going to, they're going to do the thing. Dude, I show up there with a humble hat. They're like, who is this guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
This guy's a little much. He's a little loud. He's a little this. You have to be rememberable.
Yeah.
If people don't know your name, how can they ever help you grow in your mission? How can they contribute and build something? How can you actually help them if they don't even know who you are? Somebody said, dude, do you have a card? I said, the card is on my forehead. Yeah. There's only one guy that looks like me, speaks like me,
That's right.
and has my level of conviction. There's only one. You'll find him on every platform, Ben Humble. Easy.
Ben Humble. Yeah.
That's it. You remember it.
And I remember when we were hanging and I saw you and I was like, oh, thank goodness. I was in a hoodie. Everyone's in suits, everything. I'm in a hoodie. You're in a flat brim. And I was like, this guy, whoever he is, he's my homie, man. So I remember hanging out and here we are. That was absolutely incredible. And, there's a huge difference. And I think anyone hearing your voice right now, whether, on whatever platform you're hearing, no one would argue that you're not convicted. You're clearly a convicted individual. And there's a difference, and you can tell once you know that there's a difference, you can spot it, that there's a difference between the convicted and the confident. And it's okay to be confident. We're not shaming confidence, but I think what you're saying is it's not enough. Like if you really want to make it, like you said, where am I going? I'm going to the top. Okay. Well, confidence isn't necessarily going to get you there, but conviction might. Would you agree?
I agree. I think they're different. I'm a big lover of words.
Yeah.
I think, I go back to the dictionary on most of the words, and I really try to understand their origin.
Sure.
Because I think if we use words incorrectly, the word, ignorant, people say that's ignorant or you're ignorant.
Sure.
Where does that come from?
Sure.
People go, somebody said the other day, actually at a conference, they're like, I hate the word humble. And I'm standing there with 30 of my friends, all of us wearing humble hats. I'm like, that's okay. Like your definition is your definition.
Sure.
I understand what it means to me. And it's the word that I chose to represent the way my state of mind operates.
Yeah.
And I when you have conviction and people see that, like billion dollars, multiple billion dollars.
That's
The
right.
show's called Making Billions.
Yeah.
You can create the most amazing things in this world. And I don't quote or preach a lot about, big famous multi-billionaires a lot, but
No.
you think a guy like Elon doesn't have tremendous conviction in his beliefs about where he wants to go, where humanity is going? It's the people with that level of conviction that make the impact.
Yeah.
He could have been sitting on his mama's couch back in wherever he's from,
Yeah.
and just been dreaming about space shuttles, but now he's putting them together.
That's right.
Conviction.
And I think he came out, I'm going to totally paraphrase, but he said something along the lines like, if it's important enough, you find a way to do it, regardless of the odds of success. You find a way.
Correct.
That's literally the most
Correct.
convicted statement you will ever hear a guy say. And that is absolutely, and the one thing that I feel like is hanging, and I'm pretty sure you got the answer to this, is convicted to what? And I would argue, and I'm sure you'd agree, is convicted to, well, many things, but I would assume that your life's mission might be one of those things that you need to be convicted on. So step one, get one. And then step two is learn to be convicted and see it all the way through. Maybe can you round that out a little bit?
Sure.
Would you agree with that?
Rick Warren wrote a book called The Purpose-Driven Life.
Yeah.
It's a faith-based book.
Sure.
And it just talks about the way that we live. Like, what's the intentionality behind your life, your ambitions, your work, the things that you do to provide meaning. All people, I think, on this earth, we crave one thing, and that's the word significance. We build statues for men because we want to remember them. We want to have significance. We build idols for men around this idea of significance. I want to replace this concept of significance with this idea of purpose. Purpose is greater than you.
Yeah.
I, for one, I don't need a statue. I don't need a remembrance thing. I don't need anything when I pass, because I'm living in a way that honors the Creator and honors all the things that I went through and my parents went through. And that to me is legacy. I don't need a statue to exalt myself.
Yeah.
I don't need to be your guru or your idol in this space.
Right.
I'm just another person seeking to live in my own purpose. So this idea of success is relative to me. We go, wow, you're so successful for being so young. I'm just living in my purpose.
Yeah.
And everybody who lives in purpose is successful because we're doing the things we're called to do.
Right.
Like these days, my work life looks like Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I spend in my passions and my faith and my relationships.
Right.
That's how I live my life. To me, that's a wealthy person. To me, that's a person living in abundance. I only do things I'm passionate about. That's what wealth is to me. I get to work on amazing projects with amazing people, building revenue, building companies, building impact. So I agree with you, dude. There's nothing that replaces a level of conviction, but that comes from being honest with yourself. Somebody said, is there a silver bullet to life? Is there one thing you could tell people? And I thought about it for 12 seconds, I think. And I said, yeah, stop lying.
Yeah.
That's it. Just stop lying about what you want. Stop lying about comparing to other people. Stop lying about what you're doing. Stop lying about your bad habits. Just stop lying for long enough to find truth.
Yeah. Wow, that is outstanding. So conviction and having that mission, and in order to form that, you got to stop lying to yourself. Be honest with. I'm totally putting words in your mouth, but be honest with who you are, what you're into, what you're not, what works for you, what doesn't. What you're good at and what you're not, and be cool with it all. But continue to progress, and you can't move your life forward. Can't make $1, let alone billions, if you're not honest with where you're at, let alone where you want to be. Would you agree that's a fair statement?
100%, brother.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you.
A lot of people, and I agree, there's no silver bullet. I mean, there's some very helpful advice and steps you can take, as you and I both agree that progress beats perfection. But, with that, speaking of progress, I know you get asked this, I get asked this about, how do you invest? Any type of advice? We wouldn't call it the silver bullet, but are there any, we'll say, rules that you've come now that you're on the other side and you've accomplished a lot of milestones, at least financially? What advice could you give some of our listeners, and heck, even me? What's some advice? I mean, I'm always a learner, right? Learners are earners. So what advice could you give from your extensive experience on maybe some investing principles?
Sure. So number one, don't be a consumer.
Yeah.
Don't consume your way to success, because consumption and consumerism, it has its own very, very tight controls that you won't be able to navigate. So I have people who buy real estate and they go, I bought 5 assets, 5 pieces of inventory, 5 properties, and the bank said I couldn't qualify for any more. So stop qualifying.
Yeah.
Instead of consuming your way to success, there's knowledge that you can adopt, but you have to create your own plan. So I think the creation versus consuming is such a pivotal thing.
Yeah.
So when you're moving in your journey, if you know that you want to have $1 billion fund and you want to make billions of dollars, you have to realize there's no playbook. The hard thing about the hard thing is that there's really no answer to most of this.
Yeah.
Economic conditions will change, your opportunities will change, market cycles will change. So one of my foundational principles for me, because I live by core principles, is make sure that I create my own path and I don't consume somebody else's path. I can't be Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
Well, Warren did this. I read a book somewhere, and I think it was Outliers, that said that if it wasn't Warren, in the time that he was born, in his life and what he went through and where he lived and the economic conditions of Warren's life, and everything, there would be another guy named Steve or John or Billy or Jessica that would have done the same thing that Warren did, because he's an outlier. It's not that Warren necessarily was a unique situation. He just happened to be kind of in the right time at the right place. And I think many of us, we are in the right time at the right place. The question is, will you be the Warren of your generation? Will you see that as an opportunity or not? Well, you have to create and charter that path, in my opinion. I also think you need foundational principles like trust but verify.
Yeah.
I'm a fiduciary of money. I manage millions of dollars. I can't ever do a deal for the sake of doing a deal. I have a low-risk bucket, I have a mid-risk bucket, and I have a moonshot bucket. Those are my 3 investment vehicles. And I have a thesis around how much goes into each of these buckets.
Right.
Well, if you have these principles, then be okay in this principle of trust but verify. Hey, listen, man, if you want me to get in your business, that's cool. But what I know about my business is I can't, as a fiduciary, as somebody responsible for managing dollars, just take your word. I trust that you believe it's a great deal.
Yeah.
Just help me verify the facts. And if we just did more of that versus blind faith and then I lost money, because the question goes, were you actually responsible for doing the due diligence that other people aren't willing to do, which is why you have those monies entrusted to you in the first place.
That's right.
So there is no limits. There's no upper limit to this. I think sometimes we chug along for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, making $1 million a year, and then radically you start doing this because the vehicle changes. I think anybody, I should say this, in our education company, we teach people how to create $1 to $5 million real estate companies. I think most investors over the course of a decade or so can generate a $5, $10 million company.
Right.
Very few of those will ever do $100 million.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to go back to principles. If you made $10 million and you can live off of $2 million, maybe it's time that you take the surplus $8 million plus all the other disposable residual income that thing produces and put it into a triple, quadruple digit return opportunity. So I'm an advocate for things like investing in the stock market, investing in crypto technologies, investing in other companies outside of your own personal space, because real estate for the most part is a double digit return opportunity.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they have a fallacy where they make 20% on their active real estate business and then they put money back passively at 8%. And I'm like, your model doesn't allow for massive top end.
Yeah.
All it does is it mitigates the downside.
Yeah, there's no scale.
I think you have to work with these rules. Are you in a scalable model?
Yeah.
So for me, I grind it out. I get rich. And getting rich is about just feeding your family, taking care of every material thing you want. Then my life got really interesting when I started focusing on wealth building.
Wow.
I no longer had to live under the constraints of financial pressures. I could just build cool businesses. I could go ahead and build and do and raise capital for projects and syndications that were fun and interesting and exciting for me personally.
Wow.
And that's when the quality of life financially just got so much funner, more exciting.
Wow. That is awesome. And how, a lot of these things, when you want to scale, speaking of that, it requires some kind of relationship, some type of deal, negotiation. I'm curious about, like, what do you think about, building win-win, win-lose? I mean, what are some of those relationship aspects? How does that play into your investment advice?
Yeah, a big secret that I've noticed from my life, a lesson I've learned, that if you want to have access to a lot of capital, you have to build a relational well. The problem with trying to get money from the bank is that you have one dude who loans you the money, that dude loses his job, and you have to start the relationship all over again. This happens very often.
All the time.
Right?
Yep.
Especially even in commercial banking and residential, like it's kind of the thing. You have a person working at a counter who's making $100,000 a year, maybe a little bit more, whatever, and they're the ones approving your loans, but it's not actually them underwriting the deals in many cases. So I like to build the relational well with people, and I tap that well as I need it. So my personal strategy for doing this with people just getting started is start cultivating relationships. And you can do that in many different ways. I used to throw parties.
Yeah.
I would have these cool parties where, I'd rent a cool venue. I would do a panel of real estate experts. I'd park my Lamborghini up front and I would just invite people for free and I'd give them lunch and we'd hang out and people go, wow, who put this party together? The Great Gatsby did. This Ben Humble character. And they go, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And again, for a few $1,000s, you've now fed, 100 potential money partners.
That's right.
These are people where now you can follow up and cultivate and have a coffee and move them through your relational channel. I love relational investing. This is the concept. There's kind of 3 types of approaches. There is the win-lose, which a lot of people are masters of win-lose.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm going to win. And if you lose, whatever, that's most negotiation styles.
Yeah.
There's the win-win. And the problem with win-win, it becomes tit for tat, not win-win.
Yeah.
As long as you don't win more than me, Ryan, we're good.
Yeah.
If you win more than I do, then tit for tat starts happening, and that doesn't work. And then there's the third one, which is whatever matters to Ryan matters to me. If it's important to Ryan to go through a whole, 3-page dossier about this deal because it puts his mind at ease and it educates him, then it's important to me. If it's important to Ryan to help him move money from here back into an Olympia Trust RSP account. So we have to start playing this game. And that's the way that I live my life. Whatever's important to my investors, whatever's important to the people that I care about, I just serve them first.
Yeah.
And here's what happens. After about 5 years of doing this, 6 years, people just started hitting me up all the time. Hey, I have an extra 100,000, I have an extra $1 million. I had a guy reach out recently, say, I have $985,000. Can I please put it with you? You've got a great reputation. You've got a good business here. And I just think that's so profound, is build relational capital. So can you imagine a world where you on a phone call go, I need $1 million. Let's do this deal.
Yeah.
I need $5 million. Let's do this deal.
Yeah. That
only happens after you dig. Last Friday, I called one of my investors, and within a matter of 15 minutes, we put together $935,000 to close out a round on a deal.
Right.
And it was a conversation like that. So, I mean, whether you're making billions, millions, hundreds of millions, it's just the dollars change, the amount of numbers behind it changes, but the relational element is the same. And you have to remember this: wealthy people fart too.
Yes.
Yes, they do.
Shocker.
Some people are they're so adamant about be prim and proper and whatever. You're just being fake. You're being a version that you think is more sellable than who you are. I'd rather hang out with Ryan Miller in a t-shirt and give you $100 million to deploy into deals that we can do together than somebody in a stuffy suit who goes home and complains about me and then turns on Breaking Bad and goes, work life.
Yeah.
That's not the way to make it work long term. The more authentic you are, the more honest you are, the more you can actually build know, like, and trust with people.
Yeah.
If people don't actually know you because you're lying, maybe they like you, maybe not, but they don't actually ever really trust you. So you should ask, when I do a deal with people, whether it's $1 million or $100 million, how much trust is actually there? A lot of that is very obvious through conversation and pushback you get from the other party.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And, what matters to you matters to me. And I've certainly followed that philosophy. And, we'll say it on here, but that event that you and I were at, I was offered, it was crazy. I didn't ask for it. I didn't pitch anything. I was offered over $100 million from various groups that just came up to me. And they're like, Ryan, I heard you're working on this. And And I was like, where are you hearing this? First of all. But second of all, what the heck? I didn't even pitch. And so I teach a lot of people who ask my opinion, whether it's qualified or not. And I just said, look, reputation and relationships matter, but not just, hey, this guy, I know this guy. It's no, truly build a relationship, have extraordinary experiences with these people like you. You threw parties and you created experiences. And people asked, they said, dang it, man, I'm trying to raise $1 million. How did you do that in 2 days? I said, I didn't do it in 2 days. I did it in 15 years. It played out over 2 days, but it took me 15 years building relationships, building my reputation, building everything that I have. And in that moment, it comes really quick. Why? It wasn't because I was smarter, had some impressive investment thesis. No, man, I'm not doing anything that's fancy. But I think the difference that it makes, and you'll light me up because this is a policy that I've also very deeply am convicted to, is to say, no, people understand that what matters to you matters to me. And people and deals will flood to people like that, as it has for you, as it has for me. And it is a beautiful time. And trust me, it's a lot easier when money and deals start to come to you, right? It's a pull. You're not out there pushing deals and trying to scrap. You do when you start. But eventually, if you manage your relationships well, you build that relationship capital, I believe you called it, or relationship well. You do that, it's a deep well that you can draw on and also contribute to. And that, my friend, I would argue, is real wealth.
And I'll give you a people, because that's so well that you said that, Ryan. So many people are worried about when they're going to reap the reward or the harvest.
No, you can't think.
And I'm more focused on planting seeds and just cultivate. If I planted a seed, I'm going to cultivate. It might be 10 years before you do a business with somebody.
Yeah.
That's not the point. The point is you keep cultivating. Well, people go, I'm too impatient for that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
That's right.
Like the fact that you're impatient or don't want to put in the work doesn't change the fact that you still have to do it.
Yeah, and just going out and serving and enjoying that process, and it'll accumulate for a long time.
Sometimes this message kind of gets lost.
Yeah.
Because we are impatient people. We want to just have what we want today. We're so worried about extracting. We're so worried about getting the money back today and getting the result today that we can't possibly think long-term enough to actually create really meaningful relationships with people. Because people know your intentions. They know your heart. So if you come at people with this, I expect. So one of the principles that I really follow here that I've learned in my life is real simple. Lower your expectations. Increase your intentions, but lower your expectations.
Man, that is beautiful.
Don't expect people to convert right away. Don't expect people to give you money right away. When you have a real deal and you have an opportunity and you've planted that seed and you've cultivated, so plant the seed first and maybe don't cultivate at the same time you plant the seed because it turns people off. Plant the seed, then cultivate. And as you're cultivating, then at some point you'll have the right opportunity to see that harvest come back to fruition.
That is beautiful conclusion to our.
And a lot of folks, they don't think that way, but that's a secret ingredient that I've found to really creating a life of abundance in this money raising thing is create the right type of relationships. And when you truly have trust, you don't have to push. You don't have to try as hard as we think we do. All you need to do is just be available. So when you've built the right relationships, you fostered that. For example, I send out regular emails to our lists. I have regular dialogue. I throw parties still today to people to come out and hang out with us. We build these relationships with folks. And then when I have a deal, I have something of value that actually links up and it aligns. Because when you have a relationship, then it's all about alignment. Does the money and the purpose of what you're doing align, and does it match? And if it does, then that money is extremely easy to allocate and to move towards your deal. But if it's just grinding it out and it's conflict and it's stress and the money doesn't actually align to the purpose of the investment, well, then you're just putting a greater wedge between you and that relationship. So relationships in this way should be easy. They should be based on alignment. It should be based on a benefit here that both parties have. Continue moving forward, to continue building and cultivating the relational well, to continue building that. And until you believe that you have a real relationship that's mutually beneficial where both parties win, don't seek to extract prematurely. Because if people sense that you have the wrong intentions and the only reason you created the relationship was to take from that person, then that's when reputational risk starts to become a real factor. It becomes a real problem at that point.
Well, thank you for that.
Which is, I'll give you one more principle here. And that principle is about being willing to play the long game. In the relational well, we are so adamant about extracting that we don't actually build a long list. It's kind of like a Rolodex that people used to build. I build a financial Rolodex of people year over year. And we take, if you have, let's say you have $1 million to deploy in a deal, but you're not ready. You know, we have this whole principle about the blush method: buying, lending, unsure, selling, holding. Buying, lending, unsure, selling, holding. What that means is that an investor is in one of those categories, especially in the real estate space, at any given moment. They're buying, lending, unsure, selling, or holding. So if you know that somebody today is a buyer, in a year from now, 2 years, 5 years, they may become a seller given the market conditions. If somebody is unsure or they're holding today, they may generate enough equity where they can now become a lender with the same equity that they have. So people go through different seasons. Investors are relatively cyclical. So if you catch an investor in the right season of your life, then it's easier for you to line and do deals. But you have to maintain credibility and rapport. You have to maintain a reputation with people along that entire journey so that when they're ready to actually do the deal and they're in the season where they can actually put money out, lend in your deal, buy a deal from you, sell you a deal, whatever the case is, you're prepared and you've developed a long-standing positive relationship without pressure and without this intensity that people create when they're trying to do deals. They think that more intensity is better, more friction is better. I like a frictionless experience, a frictionless lending experience where we help people deploy their money, but we're not really sitting there waiting, becoming impatient when they don't do it right away.
Wow. That's awesome. Well, I think that pretty much wraps things up for Ben Humble and I, everyone. So, keep trust but verify. Think about your relationships. Keep building that relationship capital, and you too will be well on your way in your pursuit of making billions.